You ever notice how the more available you are, the less people seem to appreciate you? You text back fast, you always pick up, you always show up, and somehow it's never enough. Funny how that works, right? Because the truth is, when you're always there, people stop seeing your presence as a privilege. They start seeing it as a given. So if you're tired of being taken for granted, it's time to learn this. Being less available doesn't make you selfish. It makes you valuable. Availability without boundaries invites disrespect. That statement might sound harsh at first, but it's one of the most important lessons you'll ever learn about self-worth. The truth is, people rarely value what they can easily access. When you're always available, emotionally, physically, mentally, you send an unspoken message that your time and energy have no limits. And when something has no limits, it's taken for granted. You might think being constantly available shows love, loyalty, or commitment, but what it really does is teach people to expect you, not appreciate you. Think about the last time someone didn't answer your call right away or didn't respond to your message immediately. Maybe you waited. You thought about it, and when they finally replied, their time felt more significant. That's not arrogance. That's balance. When someone values their time, you automatically value it too. But when someone is always on standby, always there to pick up the pieces, always ready to help at any hour, the appreciation starts to fade. It's not because people are cruel. It's because we're wired to undervalue what's predictable. When you make yourself too available, you create a cycle of emotional imbalance. You give, others take, and eventually they stop noticing the effort. You start feeling invisible, drained, unappreciated. You begin wondering why people don't show the same effort back. But the answer is simple: you never required them to. You trained them to believe that your availability was endless, that your boundaries didn't exist. People will treat you according to the standard you set, not the intention you have. It starts small. Maybe you respond to that message in the middle of dinner because you don't want to seem rude. Maybe you agree to help with something even when you're exhausted. Maybe you cancel your plans to show up for someone who rarely shows up for you. And each time you do it, you lower the bar a little more for how people respect your space. It's not about being unkind. It's about being unwise with your own energy. Every yes that comes from guilt or fear is a silent permission slip for others to keep taking. There's a difference between being kind and being available. Kindness is powerful. It's choosing to help when you genuinely want to, when it aligns with your peace and your purpose. Availability, when it's constant and unquestioned, becomes weakness disguised as generosity. You start to think you're being supportive, but what you're really doing is teaching people to overlook your limits. They stop asking how you feel. They assume you're fine because you always show up. They stop checking if you have time because you always make time. And one day, you realize you've built a life full of people who depend on your yes and disappear when you say no. Boundaries are not walls, they're filters. They don't keep people out. They keep your peace in. When you set boundaries, you're not being rude or selfish. You're being respectful to yourself. You're saying, I matter too. You're reminding others that your time has value, your energy has worth, and your presence is not something to be taken lightly. But to build those boundaries, you have to first accept that not everyone will like them. Some people will get offended when you stop being easily accessible, not because you've changed, but because they were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. You'll notice it when you start saying no. The people who truly respect you will understand. They'll adapt. They'll give you space. But the ones who only liked you for what you could do for them will start to fade. That's not loss. That's clarity. You can't keep everyone happy without losing yourself in the process. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't keep showing up for people who disappear when it's your turn to need support. When you're available to everyone, you end up belonging to no one, not even yourself. You stretch yourself thin trying to meet everyone's expectations, and somewhere along the way, you forget your own. You start living reactively, always responding, always giving, always doing, until one day you realize you're exhausted from being there for people who wouldn't even notice if you weren't. That exhaustion isn't from doing too much. It's from giving too much of yourself to those who give you so little in return. There's strength in restraint. There's power in silence. Sometimes not responding immediately doesn't mean you're ignoring someone. It means you're prioritizing your peace. Sometimes saying no doesn't mean rejection. It means preservation. Every moment you choose to protect your energy, you're teaching the world how to value it. People respect what they can't easily reach, not because it's about ego, but because it creates space for appreciation. When you start setting limits, people will test them. They'll question why you're acting different. They'll make you feel guilty for changing. But remember, growth always feels like distance to those who refuse to grow with you. Your boundaries will reveal who values you and who values what you can do for them. The moment you stop being constantly available, you'll see who was connected to your soul and who was connected to your service. And here's the part that most people don't realize. You're not just teaching others how to treat you. You're teaching yourself too. Every time you respect your own limits, you're reinforcing your self-worth. You're reminding yourself that rest is not laziness, silence is not weakness, and solitude is not punishment. You're learning that your value doesn't depend on your accessibility. You don't have to always be reachable to be reliable. You don't have to always say yes to prove that you care. You can care deeply and still create distance. You can love people and still say no. You can show up for others and still prioritize yourself, because availability without boundaries is self-betrayal. You end up giving people the best parts of you without realizing that you've left nothing for yourself. You can't expect people to respect limits you never set. You can't complain about being drained when you keep leaving your energy door wide open. Respect starts with you, not with how others treat you, but with how you allow them to. You have to start treating your time like it's currency, because it is. You don't spend money on things that don't serve you, so why do you spend your time on people who drain you? Every time you say yes to someone else, you're saying no to something else. Your rest, your growth, your peace. Your time is the most expensive gift you can give, and yet so many people give it away like it's free. You need to start giving your time to people who see it as an honor, not a convenience. Being available should be a privilege, not a personality trait. It's okay to step back. It's okay to take time to yourself. It's okay to not answer right away. Because if someone truly values you, they'll respect your silence as much as your presence. They'll know that your availability is not something they can demand. It's something you choose to give. And the moment you understand that, everything changes. Constant access kills your value and presence. When people can reach you anytime, anywhere, they stop seeing your time as special and start treating it as expected. You might think that being available at all hours, replying instantly, and always being on call makes you dependable. But what it really does is make your presence ordinary. It blurs the line between appreciation and assumption, because when something or someone is always there, the magic of their presence fades. It's not that you become less valuable. It's that people stop noticing the value you bring because they've stopped having to earn it. There's a reason scarcity increases worth. When something is rare, people handle it carefully. They show up differently. They listen harder. They appreciate more. But when you make yourself constantly accessible, you remove that sense of rarity. You become background noise, familiar, expected, unacknowledged. And the tragedy is you did it out of love, loyalty, or responsibility. You wanted to show up for people, you wanted to be dependable, and yet the more you gave, the less it felt like it mattered. That's because appreciation thrives on contrast. People need to miss you a little to remember what you bring to their lives. Think about it like this: a song you love loses its impact if you play it on repeat all day. A sunrise is breathtaking because it doesn't last forever. Presence carries weight when it's intentional, not constant. The same applies to your energy. When you make yourself available 24/7, you rob people of the chance to appreciate your presence because they never have to earn it or wait for it. They begin to confuse your consistency with obligation. They assume your energy is infinite. They forget that behind every instant reply and every "sure, I'll help," there's a person who's tired, stretched thin, and quietly hoping someone will notice. You start to realize that constant access doesn't just kill how others see your value, it kills how you see yourself. You begin to measure your worth by how much you can give instead of who you are. You feel guilty when you're unavailable, anxious when you don't respond right away, and restless when you finally take a moment for yourself. You begin to equate silence with failure and rest with irresponsibility. But here's the truth: you don't owe anyone your constant availability. You owe yourself balance. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself presence that isn't always outward, but inward too. The danger of being always available is that it leaves no room for mystery, no space for curiosity, no pause for connection to grow deeper. Relationships, whether personal or professional, need space to breathe. When you're always the first to reach out, always the one to initiate, always there before you're even asked, people stop reciprocating. They stop wondering how you're doing because they assume they already know. They stop trying to connect with you because they've never had to. The balance in the relationship tilts, and before you know it, you've become the provider of energy rather than the partner in exchange. There's something powerful about limited access. Not as a game, not as manipulation, but as self-respect. It's about understanding that your attention is valuable. When you give it too freely, people waste it. When you give it with intention, people treasure it. You don't have to be cold to create distance. You just have to be clear about when and how you show up. The less you spread yourself thin, the more impact your presence carries. The less you talk to fill silence, the more weight your words hold. The less often you show up on demand, the more meaning there is when you do. Imagine two scenarios: someone who answers every call immediately, no matter the time, and someone who responds when they're grounded, focused, and ready. Which response carries more strength? The second one. Because presence without pressure is powerful. When you choose to be available intentionally, you show maturity. You're saying, my time is valuable, and when I give it fully. You're not scattered across a dozen conversations at once. You're not half listening while thinking of your next task. You're fully there. And that kind of presence is rare. That's what people truly crave. Constant access also invites noise. You lose focus because your energy is fragmented. Every call, every notification, every message becomes a small demand for your attention. Over time, that drains you. You stop being present in your own life because you're too busy being present in everyone else's. You're in 10 conversations at once, but not fully in any of them. You're everywhere and nowhere. And slowly, the quality of your interactions declines. You say a lot, but it means less. You're seen a lot, but felt less. Your presence becomes common. And that's how constant access kills its power. When you step back and create intentional distance, people start to lean in. They start to listen more closely when you speak. They start to appreciate your effort because it's no longer something they take for granted. The same words you've always said suddenly carry more meaning because they're not lost in constant noise. Your silence starts to speak too. It says, I'm not available all the time, but when I am, I'm all in. That's how you rebuild your value in people's eyes, not by disappearing, but by showing up selectively, purposefully. And you'll notice something else. When you limit your access, the quality of your relationships improves. You stop entertaining people who only come around out of convenience. You attract those who respect your time, your rhythm, your priorities. You'll find yourself surrounded by fewer people, but the connection with those few will be deeper, more honest, more fulfilling. Because now, your presence means something again. It's no longer a given, it's a gift. The key is learning to be present, not available. When you're present, you're focused, intentional, and engaged in the moment. When you're merely available, you're reachable but distracted. Presence is about depth. Availability is about access. Depth creates respect. Access creates expectation. One earns admiration, the other breeds assumption. You get to choose which one defines you. So stop trying to be constantly accessible to prove your loyalty. You don't have to always answer right away to show you care. You don't have to always be online to be dependable. Your worth isn't measured by your response time. It's measured by the weight of your presence when you do respond. When people can't reach you every second, they'll start to appreciate the moments when they can. They'll start to see your availability not as a right, but as a privilege. You're not a 24-hour service line for other people's needs. You're a human being with limits, with emotions, with a need to recharge. You deserve moments of silence, days of rest, and the freedom to not always be on. Because when you protect your presence, you protect your peace. When you protect your peace, you protect your purpose. And when you protect your purpose, you restore the very value that constant access tried to take away from you. Protecting your time teaches others how to treat you. The moment you begin to set limits around your availability, you send a clear message, my time matters. People may not say it out loud, but they will always take cues from the boundaries you create. If you allow interruptions at any hour, they'll assume you have no limits. If you drop everything for everyone, they'll assume their needs always come first. But when you start protecting your time, when you start saying, not right now, or I'll get back to you later, people begin to understand that your time is valuable, not disposable. Time is the most honest reflection of what we value. You can tell someone's priorities by how they spend their hours. And if your time constantly goes to others, to their problems, their convenience, their drama, you're teaching them that you value their needs more than your own peace. That doesn't make you kind. It makes you unbalanced. You can love people deeply and still decide that not everyone deserves your constant attention. Because time is not just minutes and hours, it's energy, it's focus, it's life. Once you give it away, you can't take it back. Protecting your time doesn't mean isolating yourself or ignoring people. It means choosing when and how you show up. It means being intentional with your presence. It means understanding that no is not rejection, it's protection. Every time you say no to something that drains you, you're saying yes to something that restores you. Every time you protect your time, you reinforce your worth. Because people will always test your boundaries. They'll see how much you're willing to bend. And every time you bend too easily, they push further. It's not always malicious. It's human nature. We all lean into what's easy. That's why it's your job to decide what's not. When you start guarding your time, some people will get uncomfortable. They'll accuse you of changing, being distant, or not caring. But what they're really saying is, you're no longer convenient for me. Those are the people who valued your accessibility, not your authenticity. They liked that you were always there, always ready, always giving. But protecting your time filters them out. It separates those who appreciate you from those who use you. You'll start to see who values your presence because they understand your limits, and who only values your presence because it served their needs. There's a quiet power in someone who knows when to step back. It doesn't mean you're unavailable. It means you're deliberate. You can't build peace in a life that's constantly interrupted. You can't grow when you're always reacting. Protecting your time creates space. Space to think, to heal, to breathe, to become better. It gives you the power to respond instead of react. And that changes everything. Because when you stop living in constant reaction to other people's demands, you start living in alignment with your own direction. Your calendar reflects your boundaries. Look at it honestly. Is it filled with obligations that drain you or moments that grow you? Every unchecked yes becomes another piece of your peace handed away. You have to get comfortable with disappointing people who expect unlimited access to you. Not because you want to hurt them, but because you want to honor yourself. You can't build a life that feels peaceful if you keep letting everyone else schedule your time. Protecting your time is an act of self-respect disguised as discipline. It's how you show the world that your priorities matter too. Think about the people you respect the most: leaders, mentors, creators, anyone who seems grounded. They don't say yes to everything. They're not available every minute. Their time is protected. And because it's protected, it's respected. You don't just show up and demand their attention. You wait for it, you earn it, you value it. That same principle applies to your life. When you start guarding your time with purpose, you teach people to value your attention the same way. When you treat your time like it's valuable, others have no choice but to do the same. Protecting your time also builds self-trust. You begin to realize that not every request deserves an answer, not every call deserves a response, and not every problem deserves your presence. The world won't fall apart if you take a moment for yourself. In fact, it'll get quieter, calmer, more balanced. Because now, you're not giving your best hours away to noise. You're saving them for what truly matters: your growth, your health, your relationships that feed your soul instead of draining it. There's something sacred about time spent alone, away from constant demands. It's in those moments you remember who you are when no one's asking for anything. You start to hear your own thoughts again. You start to feel grounded again. And that clarity changes the way you move through life. You stop rushing. You stop overcommitting. You stop chasing approval through overavailability. Because when you respect your time, you no longer need validation for your boundaries. You simply live them. People will notice the shift. Some will adjust, some will fade, and that's okay, because the ones who truly respect you will never demand more of you than you can give. They'll understand when you say, "I'll get back to you tomorrow." They'll respect when you choose rest over chaos. They'll value your presence more precisely because it's not constant. You won't have to explain your boundaries to them. Your consistency will do that for you. The more you protect your time, the more intentional your relationships become. You begin to surround yourself with people who understand the balance between connection and space. They don't compete for your attention, they cherish it. They don't drain your energy, they match it. And that's the difference between people who respect you and people who use you. One learns from your boundaries, the other resents them. The choice between the two is made clear when you start drawing the line. Protecting your time also means protecting your focus. Every interruption, every distraction, every unnecessary commitment steals a little piece of your purpose. You can't move forward if you're constantly pulled sideways. Your time is like water. It will always flow where you let it. If you let it leak into everyone else's priorities, you'll never have enough left to nourish your own. But when you build strong boundaries, you redirect that flow back into your goals, your peace, your future. That's how progress happens, not through constant availability, but through deliberate focus. Eventually, you'll realize that saying no isn't selfish, it's sacred. It's a quiet way of saying, I respect my energy enough to protect it. And when others see that, they begin to follow your lead. They learn to wait. They learn to respect your pace. They start to see that your time is not something to waste, but something to honor. That's how you teach others how to treat you, not by demanding respect, but by demonstrating it. Protecting your time doesn't just change your relationships, it changes your identity. You go from being someone who reacts to everyone else's urgency to someone who moves with calm authority. You stop chasing validation through business and start finding peace in intentional pauses. You realize that your time isn't infinite, and that means you must spend it on things that matter, with people who matter, in ways that matter. Because at the end of the day, how you treat your time is how you treat yourself. And how you treat yourself is how the world will too.